Curiosity has the power to potentially cure human misfortunes. When you really look into the power of curiosity, you realize that it forces our brain to strip away all our judgment, envy, and hate. Curiosity forces us to naturally think more critically of the world around us. And the byproduct of this is just increased levels of compassion, empathy, and mindfulness. That's why I'm starting a new series called How to Be a Curious Person. Building curiosity can be an abstract concept. It was for me when I first set out on this journey of embodying this mindset. But I quickly realized that when it comes to the curiosity, it has more to do with the physical tools at your disposal that you can leverage than just sitting down and hoping you'll spark curiosity. And that's why for the rest of the video, I'm going to showcase 3 physical items that I use on an everyday basis to put myself into the state of curiosity. What I find to be the biggest threat to my personal curiosity is multitasking, being stretched in 4 different directions, having to deal with everything at once. And doing this on a daily basis, I'm being forced to put out multiple fires day in and day out, just so I can live to see another day. Journal writing is the voyage to the interior. In a New York Times article, What's All This About Journaling?, there was a book that was referenced, The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. In this book, Julia mentions this concept called morning pages. Essentially, this is a practice where you sit down and write 3 pages of longhand, strictly stream of consciousness. And the point of this is the brain drain, a way to expel all the anger, the petty, the whiny stuff that eddies through our subconscious and muddies our day. And this is where the power of journaling comes into play. Most of us live our lives managing other people's to-dos. We're constantly being pulled into multiple projects at the same time. And at the end of the day, our brains are so drained that we don't have a chance to look at our personal curiosities. I recognized early in my 20s that if I wanted to embody curiosity and self-exploration of the world around me, all while dealing with other people's tasks and to-dos, I actually had to sit down and write down what was going through my head. In this process, I was able to build a deeper connection to myself and the world around me. And that process then led me to ask more questions about myself and the things that were happening in the world, which then directly amplified my curiosity levels. So here's how I structure the writing process. The start of every journal consists of me writing down 3 things I'm grateful for. Some days these gratitudes are basic, other days they're more complex. The point of this is to help put my mind into a state of love and appreciation. After, I immediately start writing down the biggest thoughts I'm having and I start expanding on them. This is where I allow myself to be 100% myself. Some of my journal entries can become very intense while others are more chill. I remind myself in this section not to be hard on myself and just write whatever comes to mind. And personally, this is the section that helps me get into the state of calm that then eventually sparks curiosity. The last section is actually something I started doing most recently, where I draft out all my personal projects that I'm tackling and start writing down areas that I can control for each one. The point of this is to put my mind into a state of curiosity, and also a mindset of knowing that all my successes and failures in life are controlled by me. It just gives me a sense of ownership and control of my life, which is really calming. My psychology professor once shared the study where a teacher separated a class into 2 groups. One group was tasked with making 1 perfect vase by the end of the semester, while the other group was tasked with making as many vases as they could. By the end of the semester, the group that was tasked with making as many vases as they could were able to produce higher quality vases than the group that was tasked with just making 1 vase for the whole semester. Moral of the story here is always better to get something done out there into the universe than constantly trying to perfect something. I always find it interesting that whenever I have more time to work on an assignment, chances are that I'm probably going to work on it the day before it's due. Whereas if I only had a day or 2 to complete something, I would start tackling it right away. And realizing that you can do the same amount of work in less time is the second pillar of building curiosity: time constraints. Having a physical timer that counts down to 0 is all you need to get your brain juices flowing. And also, this goes back to the things you can control, right? Because you can't control the time constraint in this situation. But what you do in that time constraint, you can control. Imagination is unleashed by constraints. You break out of the box by stepping into shackles. And this is how I use a timer to fuel my curiosity. And it all starts when I wake up in the morning and I have my first cup of coffee. For me personally, mornings are the best time to get work done. 1, because it's still the morning and everyone's still sleeping. 2nd, it's also because my phone is still turned off. And 3, I really enjoy the peacefulness that a 5 a.m. wake up call brings. It's just something that I can't explain, but it's absolutely beautiful. Okay, so once I have my cup of coffee and I sit down, I put 30 minutes on the clock and I start scripting the videos that you guys are watching right now. And this routine in particular is so ritualized into my life, all thanks to the 4 laws of behavioral change that I read about in Atomic Habits by James Clear. I won't get into the habit loop now, but if you're interested, make sure to pick that book up. It's a very interesting read. But anyway, the moment I give myself 30 minutes, I'm being forced to write things down on paper. It's never a perfect script, but I'm just writing down anything that's in my head onto paper. And this is where curiosity starts really building for me, because at first, obviously the ideas aren't that great. I'm really frustrated. After a few minutes, the ideas start rolling out of my head onto paper, and I start building on top of each one, and I start asking more and more questions about the thing I'm writing about, and then I start asking a lot of other questions about life, and it's a really amazing experience. And it's all thanks to time constraints. And I promise you, the moment you start looking at a timer as a mechanism, as a tool to fuel your mind, to force yourself to ask more questions about yourself and the world around you, I promise you, the curiosity will start flowing. And you'll get to a point where you'll start seeing time constraints as your best friend. All of us see ourselves as the main character of our own story. To say it nicely, we tend to put ourselves into the center of our own universe. But what I found to be productive in cultivating curiosity is adding small amounts throughout the day where you put yourself as a secondary character. So then you can be more curious of the world around you. And how do we do this? Simple. Use headphones. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. So how are headphones considered a tool for curiosity? It's very simple. It forces me to listen. I find myself most times when I'm talking to people that I'm not actually listening to them. My body language might suggest I'm listening to them, but inside my head, I'm just thinking about how I'm going to respond. And this is a poison that creeps into the foundation of curiosity, and it crumbles it. And that's why headphones are very productive when it comes to listening and actually learning how to listen. Here's what I'm talking about. So I use my headphones a lot for podcasts, for audiobooks, heck, even voice notes that I get from WhatsApp. And I do this because 1, I'm being forced to literally listen. 2, and through listening, I start asking questions regarding the topics I'm listening to. And 3, these questions then spark curiosity, because questions and curiosity, they're essentially like peanut butter and jelly. You know what I mean? You feeling me on this? I tend to look at my headphones as a totem to my alter ego. And I got this concept by Todd Herman in his book, Alter Ego. In his book, he suggests that having physical items that you can either physically pick up and touch or, put on your body, in this case, headphones, it allows you to step into your alter ego. And this alter ego is someone that you want to be, a higher self of you. So my alter ego is someone who's incredibly compassionate, someone who is listening 100%. And so every time I put these headphones on, I'm stepping into this alter ego of someone who listens all the time. And I understand that this could be very complex to think about. To simplify it, I'm just essentially conditioning my brain to think of myself as someone who just listens more thoroughly when I put my AirPods on. That's it. What I've discovered personally in my life is that the more curious I am, the happier I am. And I'm less judgmental, I'm less pity, I'm less envious, I'm less resentful. And it's all thanks to these physical items. Curiosity has the firepower to solve all negative emotions. You just have to open your eyes and accept it and walk into it. Just a thought.